Hey, I'm Jack. I'm 27 years old and I live in a modest apartment in a suburb outside of Denver. I work remotely as a freelance UI UX designer. It's a pretty flexible job. I can work from home coffee shops, even from the road if I need to. I'm not married, no kids, and to be honest, not even dating anyone seriously. Life's been steady quiet, maybe a little too quiet lately. Last month, something unusual happened. Something I didn't see coming. That's what I want to talk about. It started on a Tuesday morning. I had to get out of town for a few hours to pick up some stuff from my aunt's old house. She moved to Florida and told me I could take whatever I wanted before the property went up for sale. There were a few tech items, some tools, and old books I wanted. Nothing crazy, but I needed to grab them that day. Problem was I didn't have a car. Mine was in the shop, something with the transmission. I called a few friends, but no one was available. Everyone's busy during the week, and I didn't want to wait for an Uber out into the countryside. Then it hit me, Karen. Karen is my buddy Nate's mom. Nate and I grew up together, but he's married now and moved out to Portland last year. Karen still lives in the same house they used to. She's always been kind to me, treated me like a second son when I'd hang out at their place as a teenager. She lives about 15 minutes from me. I hesitated for a second. It felt a little weird calling her out of the blue, but then I figured, what the hell? I called her. She picked up after two ring. Jack, wow, it's been a while. How are you? We chatted briefly, and when I explained my situation, she didn't even hesitate. Well, I've got nothing going on this afternoon. Why don't I drive you? 15 minutes later, she pulled up in a clean silver crossover. I walked out to meet her and got in the passenger seat. Wow, I said. Thanks again, Karen. I owe you big time. She smiled. You don't owe me anything. It's nice to get out of the house. Besides, I haven't seen you in forever. You've grown into a man, Jack. I chuckled, half embarrassed. Time does that. She looked different, but in a good way. Still very much herself. Blonde hair pulled back neatly, a soft elegance in how she carried herself. She had on jeans and a light sweater, simple, clean, no makeup, or at least none that I noticed. And yet she looked good, like really good. The drive out of the city was peaceful. We talked the whole way about Nate and his new baby, about her work. She works part-time in the library, about my design gigs. It felt surprisingly natural. We got to my aunt's house after about 40 minutes. It was quiet, just the two of us. I unlocked the door, gathered my stuff, and she helped me carry a few boxes to the car. Once we were back on the road, I opened my phone to enter the address for the second location, the storage unit where I needed to drop off half the items. I loaded the GPS and propped it up on the dashboard. Karen started driving, but then after a minute, she reached over and tapped the screen. The GPS shut off. I looked over. Was that on purpose? She smiled, eyes still on the road. Let's take the longer way. I raised an eyebrow. Longer way? No. I'm not in a rush, she said. Are you? I paused, thought about it. No, I guess not. Good. There's a back road I love. Haven't taken it in years. It's pretty this time of year. So we drove. The city faded away behind us, and soon we were on a winding road that cut through low hills and clusters of pine trees. The sun was beginning to dip, giving everything that late afternoon golden glow. Windows down, wine light in our hair. It was quiet for a while. Then she said, you know, it's strange. I don't get calls like that much anymore. What do you mean? I mean, people don't need me. Not in the same way. Nate's got his own life. I'm not complaining. I'm happy he's happy, but it felt nice that you called. That caught me off guard. I looked at her, but she was focused on the road. I didn't mean to bother you. You didn't, she said quickly. Not at all. It was nice. We talked more this time about lonelier things. She told me her ex-husband hadn't called in years, that dating in her 40s felt like a strange game she didn't understand anymore. I told her how exhausting dating apps were, how hard it was to meet someone who wasn't faking it. There was a strange comfort between us. Nothing awkward, just calm honesty. By the time we reached the storage unit, the sun was already behind the trees. We dropped the boxes off together, locked up, and headed back to the car. I could feel something shifting in the air between us, but neither of us said a word. We just got in the car and kept driving. We got back on the road just as the last bit of sunlight dipped behind the horizon. The sky turned that dusky blue that only lasts 10 or 15 minutes before full darkness sets in. The headlights illuminated the narrow two-lane road ahead, and the soft hum of the engine was the only sound for a while. Karen adjusted the air vents, leaned back slightly in her seat, and looked relaxed, content. I looked over. "Thanks again for doing all this. I know it's out of your way." She smiled. "Like I said, I don't mind. It's nice not to have a plan sometimes." I nodded. "Yeah, you don't get that often." We passed a sign for the freeway entrance, the road we would have normally taken back to the city. Karen drove right past it without even slowing down. I hesitated. That was the turn. She didn't look at me, just kept driving. "I know," she said casually. "We're not going that way." I looked at her. "No," she gave a slight grin. "No, this road loops around. It'll take us back eventually." I blinked. "You sure? I mean, GPS is kind of useful for a reason." She leaned forward and tapped the center console screen again, where the GPS had been running earlier. "No GPS," she said. "I know this route. We'll take the longer way." Something about how she said that made my chest feel tight, not in a bad way, in a way I couldn't quite explain. I tried to play it cool. "Okay," I said. "I trust you." "Good," she replied. We drove through a more rural stretch, long open fields, quiet houses set far back from the road. Every few miles there'd be a mailbox, a dog barking in the distance. It was peaceful and weirdly beautiful. Karen turned on the radio to some old soft rock station. The volume was low, the kind of music that plays when the silence gets just a little too heavy. After a few minutes, she said, "You know what I remember when you used to come over after school? You and Nate would play those video games and eat everything in the fridge. I'd come home from work and there'd be cookie crumbs all over the counter." I laughed. "We were animals." "You were boys," she said with a smile, "but you were always the polite one." I glanced at her. "I think you like me more than your own son sometimes." She laughed. "I'll never admit it out loud." The conversation drifted into lighter topics, old stories, high school memories, what Nate's wedding was like. I hadn't seen her in a long time, and yet nothing about this drive felt awkward. In fact, it was easier than I expected. There was no pretense, no pressure, just two people talking. At one point, we stopped at a small gas station just off the road. Karen pulled up beside a pump and asked if I wanted anything. I followed her inside while she got gas. She picked out 2 coffees from the self-serve machine, added cream and sugar with care, and handed one to me without asking how I liked it. "I remember," she said when I raised my eyebrow. "You remember how I take coffee?" I asked. She shrugged. "You spent a lot of time at my house." We stood there in the empty little shop, sipping coffee like it was the most normal thing in the world. When we got back on the road, it was fully dark. The inside of the car was lit only by the dash. The music still played quietly, the hum of the tires blending with it. "I've never taken this route," I said after a while. "I used to take it when I was married," she said, "whenever we fought and I needed to clear my head." I didn't respond at first. Then I said, "You and Mr. G didn't exactly seem happy back then." She sighed. "We weren't. Not for a long time." There was a pause. "I stayed longer than I should have," she continued, "because of Nate, because of fear, because of routine, all the usual reasons." "I get it," I said. "You're still young," she said. "Don't settle. Even if everyone around you is rushing to get married and have kids, it's better to be alone than to be with the wrong person." That hit harder than I expected. I looked at her again, and in the soft glow of the dashboard lights, she looked thoughtful. Not sad, not bitter, just honest. "You ever feel lonely?" I asked. "All the time," she said without hesitation. "But I don't regret choosing peace over chaos. I've learned to enjoy my own company." I nodded slowly. "Yeah, I'm trying to get there." She glanced at me for a second. Her voice was quieter when she said, "You seem like you already have." We didn't talk for a while after that. The silence wasn't uncomfortable. It just was. Eventually, we came over a small hill and the city lights came into view in the distance, just a faint glow, like a reminder that the rest of the world still existed. But in that moment inside that car, it felt like it was just the two of us floating through our own quiet bubble. Karen exhaled and turned down the music even more. "Jack," she said, "can I ask you something?" "Sure." "Why did you call me today? I was caught off guard. I mean, I told you I needed a ride, but why me? I hesitated, then said, honestly, because I knew you'd show up. She looked ahead again. That's a nice answer. We didn't say anything else after that. She drove the rest of the way in silence. And the truth is I didn't want the drive to end. We pulled off the road about 20 minutes later, somewhere on the edge of town. Karen slowed the car and turned into a small parking lot beside a scenic overlook I didn't even know existed. There was a little wooden railing, a bench, and beyond that a quiet lake reflecting the night sky. She parked, killed the engine, and unbuckled her seatbelt. I used to come here, she said, looking out the windshield. Sometimes just to sit, think, breathe. I looked around. I had no idea this place existed. She smiled softly. Most people don't. There was a long moment of silence between us, not heavy, just there. I wasn't sure if we were stopping for a reason or if she just didn't want to go home yet. Maybe both. I shifted in my seat. Do you want to get out? She nodded. Yeah, let's stretch our legs. We stepped out into the cool night air. It was early spring, crisp but not freezing, the kind of weather that wakes you up but still feels good on your skin. There were no other cars in the lot, no people, just us, a still lake, and the occasional sound of frogs in the distance. Karen walked ahead of me, stopping at the railing. I followed. For a while, we didn't talk. We just stood there sipping the second cup of gas station coffee she bought. The sky was clear stars dotted across it, scattered like someone shook them loose from a box. She finally broke the silence. Do you ever think about how fast everything changes? I nodded slowly. All the time. She turned slightly toward me. 10 years ago, I was in that big house with a husband and a kid. Now the house feels too big, the husband's gone, and the kid has his own family. You still got your life, I said. You seem put together. Karen gave a quiet laugh. That's the trick, isn't it? Looking like you've got it together while quietly screaming into a pillow every night. I smiled. I think I'm still in the pillow screaming stage. She turned fully now, leaning back against the railing facing me. It's not a bad stage. At least you're honest about it. Her tone was so casual, but something about the way she looked at me made my stomach tighten. It wasn't flirty, it wasn't suggestive, it was just open, raw, and suddenly I felt exposed too. I don't really talk to many people about this kind of stuff, I said. Neither do I, she replied. She tilted her head, watching me. You know, she said, you were always different, even when you were younger. Quiet but aware. I noticed that. I shrugged, uncomfortable under the compliment. Just didn't like drama, I guess. No, she said, it was more than that. You had this depth, like you were always thinking a step ahead. I didn't know what to say to that. I looked away out at the lake. I guess I've always felt a little out of sync, I admitted, like I'm watching life happen more than actually living it. Me too, she said quietly. We stood there for another long beat, then she stepped a little closer. I miss talking like this, she said. I looked at her again. When was the last time you did? She smiled sadly. It's been years. Honestly, everyone just wants quick conversations now. Texts, likes, emojis. Nobody actually talks anymore. I nodded. Yeah, it's weird, right? You can be connected to everyone but feel more alone than ever. That's exactly it, she said. And then she looked up at me. Her eyes didn't dart away. She didn't fidget. She just looked. It wasn't intense, it wasn't seductive, it was simple, real. For a moment, I felt something shift, like a wall between us that I hadn't even realized was there, quietly crumbled. She took a breath. This probably sounds strange, but I'm really glad you called me today. It doesn't sound strange, I said. I'm glad I did too. We stood a little closer than before now, not touching, not even brushing shoulders, but it was different. The air had changed. Karen looked down, then back up at me. Her voice was softer when she spoke again. Do you think people can just find each other at the wrong time, but still make something good out of it? I swallowed. I don't know. I think timing is overrated sometimes. She gave a small nod, almost to herself. Yeah. Then she looked back out over the water. We should probably head back. Yeah, I said, even though I didn't want to move. We walked slowly back to the car. I opened her door for her, and she paused before getting in. She looked at me again, just for a second, like she wanted to say something more, but instead she just smiled and said, Thanks, Jack. I nodded. Anytime. She got in and I closed the door gently behind her. As I walked around to the passenger side, I felt that same strange mix of calm and tension, the kind that comes when something's about to happen, but no one's willing to say it yet. We drove off silent again for a while, but not empty, just holding something between us, something unspoken, something alive. We drove the rest of the way back with barely a word between us, not because there was nothing to say, but because the silence said enough. The kind of silence that feels electric. It hung between us like a shared thought no one wanted to break. The lights of the city grew brighter as we neared the residential streets. Karen turned down the music completely, keeping both hands on the wheel, her eyes focused ahead. I glanced at her once or twice. She looked calm, maybe even peaceful, but I could tell her mind was busy. So was mine. When we pulled up in front of her house, the driveway was empty, just like I remembered. The porch light was on. The same small wooden welcome sign still hung near the door, the one Nate made in 6th grade. She shifted the gear to park, but didn't turn off the engine. "Well," she said, exhaling, "that was longer than expected." I nodded. "Yeah, but good." She looked at me. "Really good." We sat there in the car for a moment, neither of us reaching for the door handle. Then she broke the pause. "You want to come in? I've got tea or wine or just a couch." I smiled. "Tea sounds nice." She turned off the engine and we both stepped out. The night air had cooled down more, but I barely felt it. Everything around me felt muted, slower, like I was moving through something heavier than air. Inside her home looked exactly like I remembered, clean, warm, and a little too quiet. There were a few more photos on the shelves now, mostly of Nate's wedding and her holding his baby, but everything else was the same. Neutral tones, a soft throw on the couch, the faint smell of lavender. She kicked off her shoes near the door, motioned for me to do the same, and headed into the kitchen. I followed but stopped at the edge of the living room, watching her move. She moved with ease, like someone used to being alone, used to filling the silence with routine. "You still like chamomile?" she called out. "Yeah," I replied. "That never changed." She pulled 2 mugs from the cabinet, filled the kettle, and flicked it on. Then she turned, leaned against the counter, and looked at me. "You okay?" "Yeah," I said, then hesitated. "Just a weird day in a good way." She nodded. "I get it." We stood there just looking at each other for a few seconds. The kettle started to hiss softly. Karen turned back around, poured hot water into the mugs, added the tea bags, and carried them over to the living room. She handed me mine, then sat down on the couch, tucking one leg under her. I sat at the opposite end. For a few minutes, we just sipped quietly. Then she looked over at me. "Can I ask you something?" "Of course." "Did you really call me just because I was the only person available? Or was there something else?" I didn't answer right away. I could have lied, played it cool, but I didn't want to. "I think at first, yeah, it was because you were close. But once we were in the car, I don't know. It just felt right, like I needed to see you." She held my gaze. "You don't have to say that." "I'm not saying it to flatter you," I replied. "I mean it." Karen leaned back a little, looking down at her mug. "It's been a long time since someone said something that genuine to me." "You deserve it," I said before I could stop myself. Her eyes lifted to mine again. She searched my face for a moment. I didn't look away. "I'm not used to this," she said quietly. "To what?" "Feeling wanted, but not in a forced way. Just naturally." I set my mug down on the coffee table. "So don't fight it," I said. She stared at me for a beat longer, then slowly set hers down too. Neither of us moved fast. There was no sudden lunge, no dramatic movie moment. It was quiet still. I shifted slightly toward her. She did the same, a slow magnetic pull, and then she kissed me softly, carefully, like she wasn't sure she was allowed to, but I kissed her back. It wasn't desperate. It wasn't planned. It just happened. Her hand rested lightly on my cheek. My hand found her waist. We stayed there, just connected for a few seconds that felt stretched out in time. When we finally pulled back, she looked at me with something between surprise and relief. "I didn't plan that," she whispered. "I know," I said. "Neither did I." She smiled a little nervously. "This is crazy." "Yeah," I agreed, "but it doesn't feel wrong." "No," she said, "it really doesn't." We sat back, not speaking for a while, just sitting there, letting the moment settle. Eventually she stood up, walked over to the light switch and dimmed the overheads. The room softened instantly, shadows climbing the walls. She turned back toward me. You don't have to go if you don't want to. I stood up too. I know. We didn't say anything else. I followed her down the hallway, not like someone chasing a night of passion, but like someone stepping into something quiet and new, something we didn't label, something that just was. There were no promises, no expectations, just a moment that neither of us saw coming, one that felt both impossible and completely natural at the same time. The morning after wasn't awkward. I thought it might be. I prepared myself for it, the silence, the uncomfortable glances, the we shouldn't have speech. But none of that happened. When I woke up, the house was filled with the quiet rustle of someone making breakfast. I sat up on the couch, pulled the blanket off my chest, and listened to the sound of eggs sizzling in the pan. The hallway still smelled faintly of lavender and fabric softener. My shoes were still by the door. I followed the smell into the kitchen. Karen was barefoot, wearing a simple oversized t-shirt and leggings standing at the stove. Her hair was pulled into a loose ponytail. She looked over her shoulder and smiled when she saw me. Hey, she said softly. You sleep okay? I nodded. Better than I have in a while. Coffee's in the pot. I poured myself a cup and sat at the small table by the window. Morning sunlight spilled across the countertop. It was such a normal moment, and yet everything had changed. She plated some scrambled eggs and toast, set them on the table between us, and sat down. We ate quietly for a few minutes. No tension, no panic, just two people having breakfast. I don't regret anything, she said, finally looking directly at me. I looked up. Me neither. She let out a breath. I thought maybe I'd wake up and feel guilty or confused, but I don't. I feel like something good happened. I smiled. It did. That was how it started, quiet, easy, undeniably real. We didn't try to define anything. We didn't rush to talk about it. But over the next few weeks, we kept seeing each other casually, naturally. Sometimes I'd drop by after work. Sometimes we'd go for drives like that first day, windows down, no GPS, no real destination. It wasn't a relationship exactly. There were no talks about where it was going, no obligations, but there was connection, consistency, intimacy, and laughter. God, I hadn't laughed like that in years. Karen was witty, sharp, grounded. She didn't play games. She didn't pretend. She said what she felt and listened when I did the same. And I realized something slowly. We were filling a space in each other's lives that had been quiet for too long. She'd been alone for over a decade, not in the she can't get a date way, but in the deeper sense, the emotional solitude, the one that doesn't show on the outside. And me, I'd spent years floating, dating people I didn't connect with, always feeling like I was looking for something I couldn't name. Turns out, what I was looking for was comfort. Not in a boring way, but in a way that feels like oxygen. We didn't tell anyone, not Nate, not friends, not even the neighbors. We kept it private, not because we were ashamed, but because it was ours. We both knew how it would sound. You're seeing your friend's mom. You're with someone 20 years older. But the truth is, none of that mattered. It wasn't about age or titles or how it looked from the outside. It was about how we made each other feel. Every time I showed up at her door, she opened it with that same soft smile. Every time I kissed her, it felt familiar, not forbidden. And every time we lay next to each other at night, the world felt quieter. A few times we talked about what it all meant. Do you think this will last? I asked once as we sat on her back porch with wine. She looked at me and said, I don't know, but I'm not thinking that far ahead. I like now. And I realized I like now too. We didn't try to squeeze it into a box. We didn't pretend it was some fairy tale. We just kept doing what felt right. It's been 4 months. We still see each other. Still no one knows. Nate came to visit last month and I played it cool. Didn't go near the house while he was around. Karen and I didn't even text those few days. We knew it was better that way. We've talked about telling him, but always come to the same conclusion. Not yet. Maybe never. It's not a relationship built on long-term dreams or plans. We don't talk about moving in or getting married or any of that. We don't need to. What we have is something softer, simpler, a space between two people who found something they didn't know they needed. Some nights I leave her house and go back to my apartment, and we don't talk for 2 or 3 days. No pressure, no neediness, just space. Then when I show up again, it's like no time has passed. We pick up where we left off, sometimes with a kiss, sometimes with tea, sometimes just sitting side by side in silence. It's not a love story with a big ending. It's not fireworks and drama and declarations. It's two people quietly sharing something real. And honestly, that's enough for now for both of us. And maybe that's the whole point. Life has a way of teaching us lessons when we least expect it. And Jack's story is a beautiful reminder of one profound truth. Genuine connection transcends labels, expectations, and societal norms. The unexpected bond between Jack and Karen shows us that meaningful relationships don't need to fit into predefined boxes or follow a predictable path. Their story isn't about grand gestures or fairy tale endings. It's about two people finding comfort in each other's presence, filling the quiet spaces of loneliness with honesty and understanding. This teaches us to embrace the present, to cherish the moments of raw, unfiltered connection that make us feel truly seen. It's a call to let go of overthinking what should be and instead lean into what feels right, even if it defies convention. Life is fleeting, and sometimes the most beautiful experiences come from the courage to take the longer road, to linger in the silence, and to trust where it leads. Jack and Karen's story urges us to seek out those rare, authentic moments and hold them close because they're what make life worth living. What do you think? Have you ever found an unexpected connection that changed your perspective? Share your thoughts in the comments below. We'd love to hear your stories. If this story touched your heart, don't forget to like, subscribe, and hit the bell icon to join our community. Let's keep exploring the lessons life has to offer together.